Hello, welcome to BBC World News. We start in Lebanon, where a national day of mourning has begun for 6 people shot dead in violent clashes in the centre of the capital, Beirut. There have been international calls for calm, with the United Nations, the US and France all urging a de-escalation of the tensions. Gunfire erupted during a demonstration by Shia Muslim groups against the judge who's investigating last year's devastating port blast. From Beirut, Anna Foster has the latest.
It started as a protest, but the tension quickly mounted. Within minutes, it became a battlefield. Nobody knows yet who started the shooting. But the exchanges of gunfire between Christian and Shia armed groups stirs ghosts of the country's civil war. For hours, shooting echoed through the streets of Beirut. Not everyone survived.
My wife was hiding downstairs, but our neighbor was killed. She was shot in the head with a bullet. She had kids. Her daughter got married just 2 days ago.
It's a very confused picture right now. There are many soldiers out here on the streets trying to work out exactly where the firing is coming from. A lot of the exchange of fire is going on just at this cross section here. We can hear regular bursts of automatic gunfire. We can hear the thump of RPGs like that one. We've seen somebody shooting from the top of a building, and the army are now trying to work out how to contain this situation which escalated so rapidly.
As the shooting faded, the cleanup started. But the scars and the divisions remain.
Anna Foster reporting there. Well, a short while ago, she told me more about the situation there today.
Well, there's a cautious calm, I think, on the streets of Beirut this morning. Today's been declared a national day of mourning, which means that government buildings are closed, municipal business will stop. Crucially, schools have been closed as well. Students have been told not to go to universities. The funerals will happen in a few hours for those people who died yesterday. I think what everybody is waiting to see is what will happen next, is how long this quiet peace will hold. And I think there'll be a lot of focus on what happens next with the blast investigation. Shortly before that protest started yesterday morning, the judge, Tarek Bitar, was given permission once again to resume that suspended investigation. And I think everybody will watch to see whether that resumption happens, whether the MPs who have so far resisted giving evidence will do so, and whether or not really that investigation will continue on course, or whether it will be in some way derailed before it comes to a verdict.
How scared, how worried are people that yesterday's scenes may not have been a one-off?
Well, people have seen these kind of scenes on the streets of Beirut before. It's important to say not for a very long time. It's at least a decade until there's been gunfire of that range and duration on the streets of Beirut, things like rockets, as you heard there, being fired. But people who lived through the civil war here in Beirut, they've seen that before, and that really worries them. They are concerned that they will see scenes like that again, and they don't want their children to live through what they lived through between 1975 and 1990. So there is real concern from people. They want to see this resolved, but there are simmering tensions. This is a sectarian dispute, and of course there's history of that lasting and being very difficult to mediate and difficult to solve. So I think people are waiting and hoping this morning that that will be the end of it for now, at least.
Anna, the Lebanese army deployed now in the capital. How will that calm the situation, and how much power does it actually have in the midst of all those very powerful militia groups?
What's really interesting about the Lebanese army, actually, is that they are, in many ways, the glue that's holding the country together at the moment. They do a lot of jobs that other armies don't do. They do the jobs of the police very often as well. They are overstretched. They've been receiving donations of food and equipment from different countries around the world. Their soldiers are only receiving a very small amount of money. So things are very difficult for them. But we saw them out on the streets yesterday in large number. I was at one point surrounded by soldiers who were trying to decide what to do. They were looking at the buildings around them, and they were making a plan that if they saw people firing from those buildings, then they would go in and they would raid them to try and stop what was going on. There were soldiers on the street in great number. I think in the end, the reason this conflict died down was not because the army necessarily stepped in and stopped it. It was a calm which descended on its own. The army is still very well respected here in Lebanon, but they have an extraordinarily difficult job to do when it comes to keeping the peace, particularly when you consider, as we were saying, the things that the Lebanese people are living through at the moment: lack of electricity, lack of medicines, lack of fuel. The lira, the Lebanese lira, has lost 90% of its value just in the last year or so. People are angry and tired here in Beirut, and it means that tensions are always simmering just below the surface.
Anna Foster in Beirut.